Helping in the search for missing children is only one of the reasons being put forward today for some means of electronic tracking and identification. Already, many nursing homes are placing bracelets on patients who have begun to lose track of their surroundings. Prison officials, their cells bulging at the seams from an ever-increasing influx of prisoners, are attaching bracelets to the ankles of some offenders and letting them stay at home. If they leave the house, an alarm goes off, alerting the authorities. A microchip implanted under the skin could also store critical medical data that could be accessed by medical workers in seconds, instead of trying to locate a medical card or seeking out relatives. Police would be instantly able to know the real identity of arrested people, and gun shops would know for certain that the purchaser of a weapon was indeed entitled to do so. The fact is that these are very real, very sincere examples being given today for the very system that the Bible told us about 2,000 years ago. And if you think it's just Bible prophecy teachers who see these connections, listen to these words from an April 16th, 1989 Gannett News Service article.
Here's a simple trick. Wave your hand over a computer code scanner at the grocery store checkout counter and your bill is deducted from your checking account. The technology to accomplish this feat is already here, said Tim Willard, Executive Officer of the World Future Society, a Washington organization that claims 27,000 members worldwide. But Willard continues the will may not be. Just suggest something like an implant in humans and the social outcry is tremendous. There is definitely an aversion to something being implanted. It's the Big Brother is watching concept. People would be afraid that all their thoughts and movements were being monitored.
However, as we'll see a little later in this video, that fear is evaporating faster than you can say the words security and convenience.
You know, I remember back, it's a couple of years ago now that I spoke to Dr. Daniel Mann, he's an Israeli, and he was saying, I would like to propose to the Israeli government that we implant a chip under the skin of all of our diplomats and leading political figures, and then if they get kidnapped, we won't have to search around in Lebanon for 2 years like the Americans had to do, or 5 years or longer trying to search someone out, because you now have tracking satellites, and we're going to talk about these more in a moment, that can pinpoint the location of a microchip, even if you had it implanted under the skin, within 3 feet of where it's located on the earth. And as I said, we're going to talk about this later, but the idea of being able to track people, the idea of a chip, not only for financial transactions, but think of the example we used for a second of the medical community. If they rush to a scene now, someone has been hit by a car, run over by a truck or something, and the person is lying there on the verge of death, and they're fumbling around trying to find out what medication they can give. They look for, you know, the medic alert badge. That contains virtually no information. They dig through the wallet trying to find not all the medical information that is going to be there. They talk about, you know, some of the medical cards they're using today are optical cards. And yes, if you had a reader in the truck, you could get the card and put it through the machine, and there's all the medical information. But the fact of the matter is, I know how many times I go out of the house, I don't have my wallet with me, or I don't have a card with me. If you're out jogging, if you're out doing something, you're not going to be carrying your ID. A microchip implant, boom, they pull up to the person that is lying there, read the chip that is by definition with the body, because it's a part of the body, you have instant identification. It's a very good idea for these kind of things that are taking place today. They're talking about now, you know, the big lines, Paul, when we travel overseas or internationally. We're here in Canada, so every time we travel into the United States, it's a crossing a border. And in an open world today where there's so much travel, this is a time congesting, it's just a nightmare. But can you imagine, they have systems in place now that they're using smart cards, but let's go to the chip technology that you could use. The minute you pass through the scanner, as you walk through, it reads and makes sure that you're the person whose passport is recorded in the computer. They are using these in New York, they're using them in Denmark right now, they're being tested worldwide. One of the big developments, and I'm going on here, but one of the big developments they're talking about now are the no-contact smart cards. And what that means is, leave your card in your wallet, and when you walk through, the machine will just read the card right on the seat of your pants, and you just keep walking without even knowing it's there, and it's all done. They're doing it with toll highways and so on. We'll talk about that more. But these kind of ideas of the ability to track people sound like very good ideas. It doesn't sound fearful anymore. It sounds like it's being done for your own good, to help find missing children, to help people with Alzheimer's, to help people in a medical emergency. Suddenly, the aura of Big Brother is gone, and it just sounds like such a very good idea.
A general rule of thumb in scientific research is that if you want to see what will be a part of everyday life in the future, go see what's in the labs today. Nowhere is that truer than in the study of implantable microchips. However, the lab may be a little different than you'd expect. That's right, it's your black lab or golden lab that we're talking about here. You see, a program is now being carried out all over North America in which cats, dogs, horses, cattle, and every type of animal that you can imagine are being implanted with computer-readable microchips. As part of an effort to keep track of lost pets and as a way to identify livestock, InfoPet Systems of California and several other microchip developers have created a unique system that has effectively replaced the old system of dog tags and branding. The animals are implanted with a microchip that contains an electronically encoded number. That number is matched to a file and entered into a computer database. Then, if the animal runs away and is found by someone, they can simply bring it in to the local Humane Society. All the Humane Society has to do is run a scanner, no more technologically advanced than the barcode readers in your supermarket, over the skin of the animal, and a nationwide database can identify your lost pet. At last count, the system had the capability to track over 34 billion animals. Identification Devices, the Colorado-based manufacturer of the chip, however, leaves the door open to future uses. According to their promotional materials, consider how these innovations might be employed to solve the age-old problem of providing positive identification of people, animals, and equipment. So once again, it's not only the Bible prophecy teacher who sees where all of this may be leading us. Remember what Paul Schantz said at the beginning of this program?
It'll be done so that you can extract information off people's bodies, and it'll be done for very good, very practical reasons, for security, for protection of an individual's identity, and so on.
But then we went a step further and asked this man what he thought about all of this in light of the book of Revelation.
So I would say yes, I think the prophecies in Revelation are quickly becoming reality as we look in the developments in the marketplace today.
When we spoke to computer systems expert Randy Sestilli in our video, The Mark of the Beast, we asked him the same question.
Do I think that the prophecies in Revelation are coming true? I think the technology is there. That's a serious concern. Yeah, I could see it happening.
You know, I hope we didn't go by it too quickly, but I want to make sure I take a second to read this quote to you again from Identification Devices. These are the guys developing the microchips that are being implanted under the skin of animals right now. They say, consider how these innovations in microchip technology, consider how these innovations might be employed to solve the age-old problem of providing positive identification of people. They say it right in their own materials. Now, there's no people who are having a microchip implanted under their skin right now. It's in cats and dogs. But the point is, they see, as Paul said earlier in this tape, they see the future of this thing. They see how this thing is evolving along. And hey, it does make perfect logical sense. The European community now is saying, instead of branding our cattle, let's make it a European law that all cattle are implanted with microchips. Horse breeders are doing the same thing. You know, in Western Canada, where the salmon go up the Fraser River in BC, they're actually implanting some of the salmon with these microchips so they can track them and see their spawning patterns as they go upstream. So
what a tremendous business opportunity that opens up to make fish finders that can read those things when you're
tell
salmon
everybody
fishing.
that. That's a good idea, actually. Can make a lot of money on that. But the technology is there to do these things, and you have the databases emerging all the time on this thing. You think about the fact that if you have a system in place right now that can track this many different cats and dogs, then you are doing a de facto test of a national database that can keep track, what was the number? 34 billion different animals.
Let me just point out for a second, when we did the Mark of the Beast, the original Mark of the Beast video in 1990, that number was 4 billion.
That's right.
Cats and dogs from InfoPet. They've now gone to 34 billion. It shows, A, how fast the technology is growing and how the capacity has grown. And it also shows us very clearly that they now have the capacity to track every man, woman, and child on the face of the earth.
The technology exists is the point. And we're not suggesting that anyone is saying, hey, let's run a little test on cats and dogs here and see if we can get the system manageable for people. Fact is, they're running those tests whether they intend to or not. So we're not talking about intentions here. The fact is, the groundwork for this whole thing is being tested right now. You have the work on the smart card technology. You have the work on the electronic banking systems. You have the need to make sure that the card is attached to the person. And at the same time, you are implanting microchips under the skin of animals. And then on top of that, you're building a database that can keep track of 34 billion different cats and dogs. You're building a system that could be utilized in Revelation 13, a system that did not exist in any other generation before this one.
And of course, people are thinking about this. People are thinking about the potential to put this into human beings. As we mentioned before, obviously somebody has thought of this. I would hate to think that we gave them the idea from this video, but
No, clearly.
the fact of the matter is they are thinking about it. And the other thing we had just talked about is the need for a low cost, and this does solve that problem.
Absolutely. There is no question that this is a system that makes perfect sense, and it has many upsides. Now, we're going to discuss in a few minutes of what the Mark of the Beast really is, because the Mark of the Beast isn't an economic decision you're going to make. It's not just about a microchip or something. It's much, much more than that. But the technology for the technological part of it is in place.
Okay, say we decide, okay, I have my dog here, he keeps running away, I want to take him into the Humane Society, or the SPCA, as they call it in the States. Take him in there to get him implanted. How much is that going to cost me?
You know, you talk about these systems that cost thousands of dollars. To put that microchip under the skin of the animal, $35 is your total cost of this thing. So you see how cheap and economical it has really become. These chips are really very inexpensive.
Well, and the chips are very small. As a matter of fact, I may just have a chip here. As a matter of fact, I have the gun. What this is the actual gun that the veterinarians use to implant the chip inside of your pet. What they do is they pinch up his skin behind his neck, and then they just push it in with
Hold
this
that
thing.
up so people can get a good shot of that here. Here, I'll hold my hand up, and we'll get a good shot while you're grabbing the chip there.
Okay.
There is the actual gun, and it's just, as you see, just a syringe needle that you just push that along, and it will then push the chip under the skin of the animal. Now, you have in your hand there one of those chips.
Yeah, I'd like the weapon back. What we have here is one of the actual microchips from InfoPet. And this is the exact chip that they would implant under the skin of your cat or dog.
This would be actually, this one here, Paul, I'm looking, is for a bit larger animal. The syringe we have actually inserts into the cats or dogs. This would be the next size up, so if you wanted to do your turtle or something like that. They have
It'd be a
different
big turtle to be bigger than a dog.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you happen to have a great sea turtle at home, this is the kind of chip you'd be looking at to implant. But the fact of the matter is, you can store an incredible amount of information, not just a pet's name and address.
Sure.
These chips are capable of storing incredible amounts of information. I can't remember how many typed pages it was, but there was a lot.
Yeah.
Suffice it to say, a lot.
Okay, well, this is, I hope, showing us once again, we have talked to the bankers, because we're starting to wind up some of the technological discussion in this video now. We have talked to the bankers, we've talked to the smart card developers, we have talked to, you know, if you think of David Chom, who we talked to, who's in charge of setting up the cashless system, conditional access for Europe system, which will be a cashless system to run a test within the next 2 years, and we have heard that all of their motivation is there. So we know that that is factual. This is not something that we're telling you. These are the actual people talking. We have shown you how the system works. We've shown you clips of the animals being inserted. We've shown you the hand scan machines and the finger scan machines. And we've now shown you the chips and the injector. This thing is really, really possible right now.
Imagine a society in which every citizen is tracked, monitored, and watched. To those of us who have read George Orwell, the prospect is frightening. And as we noted in an earlier part of this video, many people have thought such a thing could never happen in America or Canada because we so carefully guard our freedoms. Well, think again. We sent our This Week in Bible Prophecy cameras out onto the streets to ask people if they were concerned about government databases and the access the government and big business had to areas that have long been considered private. Absolutely nothing else we researched for this video surprised us as much as the response we got to this question.
If you also think about it, you have a Visa card or a ESSO card or a whatever card, everyone's got your address, name, phone number, and you get junk mail from all over the world. So, I mean, everyone's got the information on you, and it's hard to control that.
I haven't really considered the privacy issue. I guess basically I don't have that many secrets, so there's no real problem.
It doesn't concern me too much because I figure there's probably other ways they can get the information anyhow, so no, it doesn't concern me too much.
Well, I think that probably over and above the cards that you might use in the banks, they have your social insurance number, and they have access to a lot of information through that. So I don't really think that would be a really strong issue for me personally.
No, I don't really mind the government having a lot of information. I think it allows them to do their job a lot better.
It doesn't bother me because I'm just an average Joe and they don't really care about me.
Of all the people we spoke to, barely a soul was even slightly concerned.